All right. It has been a while since we've done one of these type of videos, man. A recorded and uploaded video. It's been a while. All right. Odell Beckham. Okay. We discussed Odell on our Wednesday show. He's been released by the Browns and he's going to hit waivers. The big question now is one, does he clear waivers? If not, who picks him up? Two, if he does clear waivers, are we going to get him? Are the Ravens going to get him?
I think no and no. I don't really think he's going to clear waivers. I think somebody will snatch him up just because he's Odell. He's owed $7.5 million for the rest of the season, which that's a little bit of a steep number. But there I believe it's 9 teams who can afford that without having to make any moves. So I don't think he'll get through the whole waiver wire and without being claimed. And even if he were to get through, I don't think Baltimore would show serious interest in signing him because Baltimore doesn't like getting elite talents.
Yeah. All right. So let's break this down, right? Because basically what the Browns did was they voided the last 2 years of his contract. So he will be a free agent after this year. And I think they converted some of his salary to a bonus or something like that, reduce it a little bit. So whoever picks him up will be paying $7 million, right? So you got to have about $7 million in cap room this year, unless you sign him and then you immediately extend him or something like that. But yeah, so the question is, how many teams have that kind of cap right now? How many teams want to open up that kind of cap for basically a 1-year deal, right? So it's a very particular situation where it has to be a team that's really contending, right? It's going to be a team that's contending and can use his services immediately and then figure it out in the off season, and also has that money that has that kind of cap room for him.
It could be that, or it could be a team who just wants a little bit of relevance for the second half of the season.
True.
The Detroit Lions don't have a win yet. Nobody has any reason to really talk about them. You add in Odell to the mix, and maybe you get some attention, maybe you get some ticket sales, and maybe you get a couple wins out of it, right?
Right.
It's really difficult to kind of predict where he might end up. I'm looking at the list of the top 10 now. The waiver order as it stands right now isn't going to be the same as when he's actually on waivers. It's going to be changing, again after this coming weekend. But the Lions, Dolphins, Texans, Jaguars, Jets, Giants, the Washington football team, Eagles, Seahawks, and Bears are the top 10. I could see the Bears maybe doing it. They're in a position where they're about 500. They need a little something to kind of push them over the edge. They've got a young quarterback in Justin Fields. You should be looking to surround him with as much talent as possible, but I'm not sure that Matt Nagy would really approve of that move or want to go down that road.
Because look, they franchise tagged Allen Robinson and he's not being utilized well, right? I don't know if they want to spend more money on another player and again, I don't think it has to do with the organization not wanting him, but they're looking at it and saying we're spending a lot of money on a top tier wide receiver already, and we have a coach that doesn't know how to use them. Why are we going to bring in spend the money on another wide receiver that he doesn't know how to use?
So yeah, like I said, it's a little bit difficult to predict where he's going to go. I do think he gets picked up on waivers, so I don't think he's really going to be in the mix for Baltimore or Carolina. Carolina's one of those teams that has the cap space, and Robbie Anderson forgot how to catch, so that'd be nice for the Panthers. As they try to make a push in the second half of the season. But yeah, I think he'll go fairly early in the waiver wire. I think it may be a team that people aren't really expecting. I could see Washington, honestly. I think that they're one of those teams that would want to make a push. They won the division last year, even though they were under 500. But they came back this season. The defense isn't what they thought it would be. They lost their starting quarterback. Looks like maybe for the whole season at this point. It's just not going the way they kind of hoped. And maybe they're looking for a little something to try to get them turned around.
But they're another team. we both like Ron Rivera, but we know Ron Rivera isn't about scoring points. Right. So I don't think Ron Rivera, you and I don't subscribe to the whole attitude thing, right? Coaches like guys with talent,
Yeah.
but they already have Terry McLaurin, who's very talented. All
Yeah,
right.
but they have Terry
And,
McLaurin and nothing else. Honestly,
they got, Curtis Samuel. I mean, has he
but
been hurt?
he hasn't really been playing.
No, he hasn't. But again, Ron Rivera's been on record of saying, he's good with the game being 13 to 10 or whatever. Like he doesn't really look to score a lot of points. He wants to get it done on defense. So I don't think they're going to want to spend the money on Odell, right? But first of all, I'm going to say I do think he will clear waivers. I do. But I am going to make a case. I'm just going to throw it out there. Panthers Nation, okay? It could happen. It could happen. I can see that. Think about it. They're not all in on Sam Darnold. I think we all know that, right? This organization has shown that they want to bring in a big name quarterback. They tried to get Matt Stafford, didn't work out. They obviously tried to get Deshaun Watson, that didn't work out. Aaron Rodgers, even with all his shenanigans going on right now, I think is somebody that they still might be keeping an eye on. And Deshaun Watson didn't get traded, so that's also somebody in the offseason that they might be trying to keep their eye on. Now, Deshaun Watson has a no trade clause, and right now he's saying he's only going to give it up for Miami. But things change. If you get Odell, right, and in the offseason you extend Odell, and you say, hey, you can come here, you can play with Odell, you can play DJ Moore. Like, we have weapons here, and we're going to work on this O-line. Situations change, you know what I mean? So I can see that. I can see that happening.
Yeah, I don't really think it's going to be under consideration, even though they do have the cap room to make it happen. They have DJ Moore, they have Robbie Anderson, who they just extended. They just drafted Terrace Marshall. I don't think they'll be in the market. I don't want to say they better not be, because I would like to see Odell in Carolina, but they better be looking to spend that money on the O-line.
Yeah.
But, we do want to kind of shift this conversation towards the Ravens.
I was going to say that for last. I'm trying to throw out different scenarios, and I want to kind of point out that it does make sense for Carolina to be in on them as well. But yes, we're going to shift this to the Ravens because, look, man, at some point, Ravens fans, like the ones that are out there saying, no, we don't need Odell, we don't want Odell. At some point, you have to stop being afraid of having expectations, because that's what this is about, right? We just don't want guys that are talented here. When I say the fan base, we don't want guys that have talent here, because with talent comes expectations, right? It has nothing to do with his attitude. It has nothing to do with him being a diva. It has nothing to do with him, taking too many targets away from other players. It's not that. When you get somebody like that, then it's like, okay, well, we're expected to win, and we like being the underdogs here, right? I don't want that for this team anymore. We have one of the best, if not the best, quarterback in the league, and I want teams to be afraid of us. I want people to know exactly what they're getting themselves into, and knowing that there's nothing that they can do about it. That's what kind of team I want. And you're not going to get that with Hollywood Brown. You're not going to get that with Rashad Bateman. You're not going to get that with Sammy Watkins. I like all three of those wide receivers, right? And you can have all those three wide receivers here still and bring in Odell. Odell will make this offense really pop.
Yeah, and Baltimore doesn't really have playmakers outside of Lamar. They don't really have guys who can get the ball in their hands and then make something happen afterwards.
Right.
Hollywood does it a little bit, now and then, but they don't really have that guy, right? And there's a lot of talk about how they're good at wide receiver. They don't need Odell. The wide receivers are much improved, and they are much improved, but they're not much improved like, hey, we've got one of the best receiving cores in the league. They're much improved like you went from last to middle of the pack.
Yes.
Odell is far and away better than every wide receiver in Baltimore. It's not even close.
It's not even close. It's not even close. Yeah.
And the talk with Lamar's supporting cast, a lot of people say he's this is the best supporting cast he's had. It's actually kind of the worst supporting cast he's ever had, because the wide receivers are better, but the O-line has been god awful, and they don't have anybody at running back. And I do see a lot of people saying that those are the needs, right? That's where they need to focus, not at adding another wide receiver. They need help on the O-line. They need help at running back. And that's true. But they didn't address those issues at the trade deadline. And
Yeah,
this doesn't have anything to do with that. This doesn't prevent them from, going out and getting O-line help. What prevented them was EDC not picking up the phone, not being willing to part with draft picks.
right.
Andre Dillard was available, Marlon Mack was available. Obviously, there were other guys available. Baltimore didn't think any of them were worth it, so they stood pat at the trade deadline, and that's that. You're not going to see really good O linemen come available. You're not going to see really good running backs come available. They said, "Hey, we're going to roll with what we have," and so like Odell, being on the table or off the table isn't connected to their other issues. They already decided that those issues, they're going to roll with them how they are.
Yeah.
Uh,
Because
and, and
we didn't want Andre Dillard, right? A lot of people saying, "Oh, it's not worth it to give up any picks for Andre Dillard." That was the best tackle that you're going to be able to get at the trade deadline, and we didn't want to make that move. We didn't want to make the move for Marlon Mack because we have running backs on the team. They're all hurt, but we didn't want to give up any picks, significant picks, to bring in Marlon Mack. So, like we said, it is what it is. Odell is a separate issue. Odell can upgrade our wide receiving core because I know everybody's excited about the wide receiving core that we have now, but it ain't that good.
no, no,
It's not that good. And also, I want to point out too, the league, like the top teams in the league, they're at an arms race. Okay, they're in an arms race. They are just snatching up the best talent possible. What we don't want to see is Odell clear waivers and he ends up on Buffalo playing with Stephon Diggs, or ends up in Kansas City playing with Tyreek Hill, right? Or ends up in Tennessee playing with AJ Brown and Julio Jones. Like, these are teams that we're going to have to see in the playoffs. And you can say whatever you want to say about our wide receiving core. You gonna feel comfortable with us having to face Stephon Diggs and Odell Beckham? I don't think so.
right. And it's a thing in Baltimore, like they've never had in Baltimore, which is overwhelming talent on offense. Everybody else is going for that, except the Ravens.
Yes.
The Ravens are stuck on this whole good enough thing, and there is no good enough, and I mean that applies to defense as well, right? Like, when you have the chance to get elite talent, you do it no matter what you have already. I mean, we're not talking about a quarterback where only one person gets to play. The Rams didn't need Von Miller, but they
No.
went out and got him anyway. When they decided they were going to go all in to win a Super Bowl, they went out and they got Marcus Peters and Jalen Ramsey, right? Like, they're not sitting back and saying, "Oh, well, we're good enough. We don't need to go after this. We don't need to go after that." No, you go and you get the elite talent when you have the chance, because they don't come around very often. And you have multiple third-round picks. You have multiple fourth-round picks. You're going to get guys like Tyree Phillips. You're going to get guys like Ben Powers, who maybe they develop into good, solid players, at some point, but they're not difference makers. And you're leaving the difference makers out, on the market, and saying, "Hey, we're going to go with the quantity over quality."
So on that note, we want quantity over quality. I mean, that's been a outdated formula that the Ravens have had here, right? Stack up on draft picks, develop the talent here, grow, have homegrown talent. We're just not doing it like that anymore. And even the guys that we do get, okay, we develop them and then we don't want to pay them, and then they go elsewhere. So here we are. Okay, you guys really love Hollywood Brown sometimes, right? Okay, we got 2 more years left with him. Are we going to pay him? Right. After that, we're going to have to pay Rashad Bateman. Do we want to pay Rashad Bateman when his time comes up? Probably not. We're not going to pay both of them, most likely. Or if we do, we're going to have to make cuts elsewhere, because this team doesn't like paying anybody. They just want to keep drafting the next person. But the problem is, we don't get enough production out of our draft picks early on for it to help us get to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, that's why you see these other teams come to that realization We need more than just high draft picks. We need guys that can play right now at a high level.
Yeah, there's a time to build for the future, and there's a time to go for the title, right?
Yes.
There's one goal in all of professional sports, and that's to win a championship. And you do that with guys who can play now, not with guys who are cheap, who you think will be able to play later.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple of talking points that you're going to hear out there, because you already know how we feel. There's that gatekeeper Ravens Twitter out there that they're going to tell you why it's a bad idea. First thing is, can't afford it. If he doesn't clear waivers, obviously we're not going to have the money for it. But if he does clear waivers, we can negotiate whatever for him. So money's not going to be an issue when it comes to that. The second thing that we've been hearing, which I was in the Twitter spaces earlier and we were discussing this, is he stumps the growth of other wide receivers, or he's taking too many targets away from other wide receivers on the team. All right, because we don't pass the ball that much, and he commands the ball X amount of times, and if for him to eat, other people won't eat. And my response to that is, let him starve. Right? What do you care if Duvernay gets 0 catches? What do you care if Prochet gets 0 catches? What do we care if Sammy Watkins gets 0 catches if it means Odell's going off? Yeah. I don't care about any of them. They have to get in where they fit in. Odell is a far better player. He's going to make more plays than those guys. Rashad Bateman's still going to get his. Hollywood's still going to get his. I promise you that. Those guys can ball. Sammy Watkins will still get his, if we're being honest. Everybody else, Miles Boykin, Duvernay, Prochet, don't matter. What does it matter?
Well, my response to that is always, the whole we don't pass the ball enough thing is always nobody's stopping you from passing the ball more. And if your response to that is, well, Greg Roman doesn't like to, well, that's why Greg Roman needs to go.
Yes.
And by extension, John Harbaugh, because John Harbaugh's not pushing him to pass the ball more. They can't run. Right, they don't have running backs, and they're still. Look, granted, they are passing the ball more this year because of that, but you can still pass the ball more if need be. Like you said, doesn't matter if Prochet and Duvernay aren't seeing the ball, right? Like I don't hear anybody arguing that that they shouldn't have signed Sammy Watkins because now Tylan Wallace isn't playing. Right?
I forgot about Tylan Wallace.
They just drafted Tylan Wallace in the 4th round. Why aren't you worried about stunting his growth? You know why? Because stunting their growth isn't a thing.
No, it's not.
Whether Odell's there or not, they're going to develop on their own.
Yes.
That's not what happens during the NFL season. That's not what happens with NFL coaches. That's an off-season thing where they have to put in the work to get better. So that's going to happen if they have that drive to get better regardless. And, you have guys from Cleveland, his now former teammate, who came out and said that Odell was a great teammate who did everything he could to help them along in that wide receiver room.
Yeah.
So I really don't want to hear about that. And again, Prochet, Duvernay, Wallace, these guys aren't good enough, and Boykin. These guys aren't good enough to worry about whether or not they're getting targets. They're just not.
They're just fan favorites, right? I get it. We like them. I like them. I don't dislike any of these players that we have, but we call for how we see it. Like these guys aren't. We're talking about a great wide receiver. I know he's had some down years in Cleveland, but that's for other reasons.
Down years production wise, he's still getting open. He's still playing at a very high level.
Yes.
They just can't take advantage of it. Either they're unable or unwilling to take advantage of it. And that's why it just didn't work, and that's why he got released.
Yeah. Now I know people don't like how it's been reported, and it gives off that. Look, you have to understand the media is always going to frame it in a way to where it's the player's fault and the organization has no culpability in the matter, right? The fact is, you just didn't have a good quarterback, right? Baker Mayfield there's something going on with Baker that they can't figure out, man. Like I don't know if he refuses to get him the ball, if he can't see him out there, but he's just not getting him the ball. They haven't been on the same page. They've been trying to make it work. And, I think it's more than just Odell frustrated. I think a lot of people are frustrated over there. And when you're not winning games, right, that's when the ugly stuff comes out. When you're winning, people will be quiet and they say, hey, it's working. We're winning games. We'll go along with it. When you're not winning, whether Odell's there or not, stuff is going to come up. I promise you. If they don't start winning, they're still going to have major issues over there. It will have nothing to do with Odell. So they need to figure out how to get Baker back to his rookie form, really, right? Or playing kind of like last year. I mean, because there are times where he's played well. They got to get him back to that point. And Odell being there or not has nothing to do with it. Him putting out the video, or his dad putting out the video, whatever. Whatever. Like that's not something that's going to deter me from wanting to bring him to our team. I'm not worried about that from our quarterback. If you're new here, take a minute, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of these videos in the future.